Hi everyone and welcome to another BricksMembers tutorial. Today I will show you how to connect payment providers to BricksMembers so that user levels are automatically assigned when someone purchases your products, and that works for new users. Like BricksMembers can automatically create a new WordPress user and assign the user level, but it also works for existing users, so there it would just update the user level or add the user level. And of course you can both add and remove user levels, and it can also handle subscriptions. So for example, if a subscriber cancels the subscription and the current month runs out, then it can also automatically remove a user level so that the user loses access. Now there's one thing I want to address first, and that is that in order to connect payment providers, we use webhooks instead of just having a certain numbers of providers that we connect to. And there are several reasons why I do that. At first, I do that simply because I think that only maybe giving you PayPal or Stripe is actually quite limiting, because especially if you want to sell online courses or other membership sites, then oftentimes there are better payment providers than directly connecting PayPal and Stripe, because for example, you would have to deal with EU VAT laws, for example, often, what essentially means that whenever someone purchases from a EU country, he would or you would have to remit the sales tax in the country of the customer and not in your own country. And that's pretty annoying because there are quite a few countries that are affected by that. And so you don't want to do that. And with Stripe and PayPal, for example, you would always have to do that. But if you use a payment provider such as Gumroad, Lemon Squeezy, Copecard or so, then those payment providers will handle that automatically for you, because they are essentially the merchant of record. So you don't have to deal with all that stuff. And that's why oftentimes it's actually better to use other payment providers than you're traditionally used to for such cases. And because there is such a big number of payment providers out there that are actually better for that, it's just hard to integrate them all directly with BricksMembers. You can imagine that would be quite a lot of stuff to integrate. And that's why BricksMembers uses webhooks, because pretty much every decent payment provider out there supports sending webhooks whenever a certain event happens, and BricksMembers can work with all of them. But aside from that, I would generally recommend to separate your store from your membership site, because at first membership sites are oftentimes pretty hard to cache. So they are usually slower than usual websites that are indexed by Google, or your landing pages and stuff that you send users to from YouTube or other social media channels. And that's why it's generally better to have your shop where you actually do the sales. The shop then redirects to the payment provider. So that could be Lemon Squeezy, Gumroad, Copecard, or like PayPal, Stripe, etc., whatever you want. And then after that checkout, after the payment provider page, that would redirect the user to the membership sites where you have BricksMembers installed. And for this setup, webhooks also work perfectly, because your payment provider will send the webhook directly to the membership site with BricksMembers installed, and BricksMembers will ensure that the user is being created and also the user level is applied. So in that case, you separate the shop, the payment provider, and the membership site. And that of course has a performance advantage, but also like security to some degree, because let's say, for example, your shop gets hacked, because that's indexable by Google, so it's more likely that hackers would find it, while your membership site is kind of hidden and also behind the login, like no user can see anything without logging in. That of course instantly makes the membership site more secure, and therefore if your shop gets hacked, your membership site, for example, would not get hacked, and therefore all your users would still have access, etc. And that's also what I do with my own membership site, like Learn with Pascal it's called, and there I offer filmmaking courses, which I advertise essentially in my YouTube videos. And yeah, there it's all separated. I have my shop, I have the payment provider, Lemon Squeezy in that case, and then I redirect the users to the actual membership site. And I never had any problems with that. It works great. The sales tax get remitted automatically. I don't have to deal with that. So it's actually a really nice system to use the moment you set it up. Anyway, so much about the theory or the ways on how you can set it up, either by having everything on one side or by having everything separated. Let's now have a look into BricksMembers to show you how to actually set that up, because it might look a bit or feel a bit difficult at first, but it's actually quite easy, especially also I do provide presets for all major payment providers, so you can actually save yourself a lot of time and hassle. And I will give you 2 examples here. I will give you at first the example with Lemon Squeezy, which is quite the same way on most general payment providers that you will find. And I will also show you how to set up with Stripe, because Stripe is a bit different and a bit complicated, but I actually make it quite easy for you. So let's first show you how I would set that up with Lemon Squeezy, and I actually did that. So the first thing that I want to show you here is that when you go into the back end of your payment provider, you usually have some sort of test mode available. And when you set something like that up, you want to activate your test mode at first, because then you can test actual purchases. As you can see here, for example, I have a checkout here, and this is all in test mode. Like, I can use some fake credit card data that is always available in the documentation of your payment provider. And with those fake credit card details, you can like fake purchases. They trigger webhooks, and then with those webhooks, you are able to see if everything works in BricksMembers on your membership site. So the first step that you want to take now is to set up the webhook itself. And you do that by going onto the Webhooks settings page or the webhook configuration page in BricksMembers. And what I would suggest you doing there at first is to select your provider, or at least look if your provider is available. If not, if your provider is not available, you can simply, under authentication method, select either the authentication method that your webhook or that your payment provider uses for webhooks, or you just leave it to all method and look what fields are available. Like here in Lemon Squeezy, for example, if I go to settings and webhooks, you see here we only have the callback URL and the signing secret. So if I'm in BricksMembers here under authentication method, you can see we have a webhook URL here and also a secret. And so these 2 is what I would copy and paste simply here, and then it would automatically be set up. I can also show you that in the existing one here. So there we have the callback URL, and we have the signing secret, and then of course all the events that I want to trigger it for. Don't actually need all events, like only select the events that actually should do something in BricksMembers. But yeah, it's generally better to have it payment provider specific. So here in that case, for example, I would select Lemon Squeezy in the header on the payment provider, click apply provider settings, select OK, and then save settings. And now, as you can see, it set everything up automatically for Lemon Squeezy. So we're using an HMAC signature. It only uses webhook URL and signing secret. And what you should also already ensure is that enable logging is turned on. That is important because then every webhook that comes in gets stored in the database, and that's important later because when we're going here on the webhook mapping page, on the right side, you want to have the last received webhook data in there because that helps you a lot to fill out all those fields here. No worries, looks a bit difficult, but I will show you how to do that. It's actually easy. And there's also this parameter here, which is not for Lemon Squeezy specific, it's turned off anyway. That is UL parameter mode, because like some quite odd webhook providers also simply put all the webhook fields into the URL instead of in a JSON format. And if you have a payment provider like that, then you would turn that on, but this is not what we're doing right now. And yeah, so now from here, you would simply like copy those fields here. So for example, here, like it's the same one, but let's copy that again just to ensure everything fits. Signing secret. Let's also generate a new signing secret here because yeah, you shouldn't know the last one. Copy that. Okay, save webhook. And also here, of course, because we generated a new webhook secret, I have to save the settings here now. Then I would select here which webhooks should actually do something. So for example, here order created to assign a user level, order refunded to remove a user level, that makes sense. Subscription created to subscription updated is what we would need. Yeah, canceled not actually, because when the subscription is canceled, they might still have some days left. So I don't need those here. Resumed, yes. Expired, that is important because that's when the subscription is actually expired after canceling them. Paused, also not important. Unpaused, not as well because it's not expired. Payment failed, payment success, recovered. This is all not needed. Okay, then I would click Save Webhook. And now the webhook is already set up and it should work. So let's actually test that. Let's go into the checkout here from Lemon Squeezy. Okay, everything filled out, then click Pay. And now the webhook from that test purchase should have already arrived here on the webhook mapping page. At least if you turned enable lodging on, otherwise that would not be the case. So let's have a look here. And yes, the data is there. Here you can see order created was the webhook as we've set it up before. Like here you see order created. And we also see all the data here like Pascal Basil, my email, USD, sales tax, etc. And it might have already created a user now because I already had enable user creation updating on, but those fields were wrong. So I assume that the user is there, but the level has not been applied yet. And yeah, we can see here the user is there and the level has not been applied. So this is all correct currently, because I did not fill out the fields on the webhook mapping page. Anyway, what you can also do now already on the webhooks configuration page still is you have that test webhook data here, and you could click the load from last webhook data in here and say fields, because then instead of just having to trigger new webhooks here by constantly having new purchases, you could just click send test webhook all the time, and that would resend the same webhooks so that you see if user creation and user level assignment work. In case it did not yet, because then you just save a bit of time, right? Anyway, after that, you would have to go on the webhook mapping page, and then you see the last received webhook data here. And what I would suggest you doing now is to also select payment provider. So in that case here, Lemon Squeezy, autofill fields, save settings. And now, as you can see, it already filled out all the fields that it can fill out based on what we know about the payment provider. The fields that it cannot fill out is the user level mapping here, because obviously the system cannot know what user level equals what value here from a certain field from the webhook, and it can also not know what user levels are part of your subscription. But I will come to all that in a second. It's actually quite easy to set up. So to give you a better understanding of how all these mappings here work, let's go field by field. At first, standard fields. Email should be quite self-explanatory. That will be the email of the WordPress user. And there you have to tell it which webhook field here contains the user email. So in that case here, because I used a preset that's data attributes user email, so I can scroll down here and there we find, here's the email field, so data attributes user email is there. And it would now take this field here, or it would take the value from the field that you put in here as the email for the WordPress user. And then we also have first name and last name. But the thing here is that most, or many at least, many payment providers don't have a first name and last name field, which is why we also have a name split setting here. Because as you can see here in Lemon Squeezy, it only has one field where it has my first name and last name. It's the data attributes username field. As you can see here from our preset, it already filled that out. So what it will do now is it will take this field and then based on a delimiter, which by standard is a space, will separate the name here into the first name and last name and then fill out the first and last name in WordPress for you automatically, even if the first name and last name fields don't exist. So this is what this configuration name split settings part is for. And then like generally first name, last name field, I think it's self-explanatory, right? Like you would just select the field here that would contain the first name and last name. Let's say data ID would be it. Then I would just copy data ID there and paste it into first name, for example. So quite easy. And next up, we have the user level webhook fields here. It can also be multiple fields. And this is really important here. These are the fields that have unique identifiers to assign your user levels. So for example, here it says data attributes product name or order item product name. So let's have a look here where the product name is. There it is, data attributes first order item product name. And as you can see here, this is Learn with Pascal. So this is what I ordered here. You see Learn with Pascal, that's the product name. And now let's say I want the user level advanced access to be applied when someone purchases the product Learn with Pascal. Then I would simply copy Learn with Pascal into advanced access product name here, because the value of this field here must match the values found in one of those fields here under user level webhook fields. So this is for product name. Yeah, if I would click save then now already, that would now mean that whenever a webhook is coming in that has the field data attributes first order item product name, and this field contains the value Learn with Pascal, then based on this value, the advanced access user level would get applied. Now, you might have the situation that you don't only have a product, but you also have variants of certain products. Like on my actual membership site, for example, I do have certain variants that apply, let's say, only basic content, then some advanced content as well, and advanced content plus a coaching. So for all of them, I have different user levels defined. And those variants are all variants of the same product. So obviously here, if I would just put in Learn with Pascal, for example, here to all access, beginner access, and bronze access, and not advanced access here, that wouldn't work, because then it would just apply all three user levels, and that's not what you want. And this is why we also have the variant level webhook fields that, for example, in a webhook coming from Lemon Squeezy could be data attributes variant name or data attributes first order item variant name. I think we should also have this field in here. Like, yeah, here you actually see it, data attributes first order item variant name. It's currently default because I don't actually have any variants in there. But let's say I had, then I could, for example, put in default here. And now, despite having the product name Learn with Pascal here in 3 different user levels, because I only filled out default for the first variant name, it would actually only apply the all access level here, because in the webhook it says default for a variant name. Hope it makes sense. So with that, you also have the option to apply certain user levels if a certain variant of a certain product is being purchased. It's also important to fill out both fields here for that. And yeah, this is basically all you have to know to apply simple user levels. Here there's a bit more when it comes to subscriptions soon, but let's first come to the rest here in the configuration box, which is default user role. Like by standard, it's set to subscriber, and it doesn't actually matter what you choose here. It's really only for you that in the WordPress backend, when you click here on users, that you can see what kind of roles users have. Then you know directly, okay, which user role is a member or a student or so. Because maybe on some websites and some membership sites, you might have some general newsletter subscribers that have the subscriber role from WordPress, but maybe then you also have another user role for members, for example, so that you have the normal subscribers separated from members. So this is actually not an important field here, it's just for you so that you can see more in the WordPress backend what kind of user are you dealing with currently. And by the way, if you want to create your custom user roles, you can also do that in BricksMembers. You don't extra have to install another plugin for that. To do so, you simply go to settings here, and there under settings, you find the manage user roles screen. So for example, let's say I want to create another user role called member, then I would just create that here. Okay, created successfully. You can also remove user roles here. Anyway, if I would now reload the webhook field mapping page, then I could, for example, also select the member user role here. And the capabilities of that user role will always be the same as subscriber. So if you want to change that, then you would have to use another plugin to change those capabilities. But usually, because it's just for you to know what kind of user you're currently looking at, it's actually not important. You can leave the capabilities as they are. What you can also do here is you can activate advanced user role updates. So usually you don't need that, but there you can just explicitly select if a user role should also get updated for existing users. So if, for example, you already have a user in WordPress that's a subscriber, but whenever it gets a user level assigned here from BricksMembers, then it would also update the user role from subscriber to member or student or whatever you selected here. And of course, you can also do the exact opposite here. You can also select reset role when all levels are removed. So if a user does not have any user levels anymore from BricksMembers, then you can select a fallback user role here, for example. So there you could, for example, set him back to subscriber. So I don't actually need that here, but if you need that, then this is all there. And yeah, we already had user level mapping. That's probably the most important one. And then you have another one here, which is called action events. And that is to tell BricksMembers what it should do based on all that user level mapping on top here. Like, should it add a user level to an existing user, or should it remove a user level from an existing user if a certain webhook comes in, and then also change user level. And that's important here. Like, we at first have the event key. In case of Lemon Squeezy here, that's meter.eventName. So here, for example, you see meter.eventName is order created. Obviously, order created should be an event where a user level is being applied. So that's why here under add to user level, we do have order created here. So whenever a meter event name contains the value order created, it should assign the user level based on those field mappings here, or the user level mappings. And now here's the opposite, remove from user level. We said before, for example, for subscription cancelled. We don't actually need that here, but subscription expired. And yeah, subscription payment failed can also make sense because then you should lose access directly. So here it means like whenever meter event name is, for example, order refunded, subscription expired, or subscription payment failed, then it would remove a user level based on those mappings here. And now there's one tricky situation, and that is whenever you deal with subscriptions. And maybe also additionally to subscriptions have user levels on your membership site that are not for subscriptions. So for example, in my case, maybe someone purchased a course so that he has access to this course forever, but then he also purchases a subscription so that he has maybe access for a certain amount of time only to other online courses or to other content on my membership site. Then usually when it would change the user level, the logic would not know which level is for subscription and which level is for lifetime access for certain content. And so if a subscription changes, if for example you want to switch from a basic tier to an advanced tier subscription, then the logic would usually have to remove all user levels, all existing user levels, and assign the new subscription user levels, like the advanced subscription, for example. Or it would do the opposite. It would switch from advanced to the basic subscription and then would also remove all user levels that the user has. And that's obviously a situation that you don't want to have, because the user would be quite angry if he suddenly loses access to content he purchased before that gives him lifetime access, right? And so in order to deal with that, you also have this change user level event here at first, and that says subscription updated. So that's, for example, if he changes from a basic tier subscription to an advanced tier subscription or the opposite. And then whenever that happens, it looks here on those target subscription levels. So here you select all these levels that are part of a subscription. So for example, if meter event name here would not be order created, but subscription updated, then it would at first look if the user already has any of those subscription levels here. And if yes, then he would remove only that level that the user already has and apply the other subscription level based on those user level mappings here. But it will leave all other user levels untouched. So for example, if now, let's say silver tier here, it's just an example, like the naming here doesn't make any sense. But let's say silver tier would be a lifetime product that he should have access to forever. But he also put, let's say, beginner access now, or no, let's say advanced access. And now the user, after some time, thinks, okay, subscription is a bit expensive, I want to lower that. Then he would probably switch to beginner access, pays a bit less. And then the logic here will see, okay, he has advanced access user level, so we're removing advanced access and assigning beginner access while keeping the silver tier user level as it is. So he will end up having, instead of advanced access user level and silver tier user level, the beginner access user level and still the silver tier user level, so that he changed the subscription, but he still has access to all the lifetime content he purchased before. So it's also quite easy. Just you need to ensure that there's a change event mentioned in there so that the logic knows, this is where subscription changes. And then you will have to ensure that all user levels that are part of a subscription are selected here, and the logic will handle all the rest. So as you can see, it's actually quite easy, even if you deal with subscriptions. After that, of course, click Save Settings, and it's all done here. And after that, you can try it again. You can either do another test purchase here, or you can go back on the Webhooks configuration page and use the test webhook part here to send the same webhook again if you use the load from last webhook feature here before, and then it will resend the webhook, and then you should find a user here that has already the user level applied. If it did not work, you most likely did something wrong here somewhere in the mappings, so definitely check those mappings here. If the values here match actual fields that are mentioned here in the user level webhook fields or variant level webhook fields. And of course, if the action events here are being set up correctly. And of course, whenever you can, select the provider template here, because that will help you a lot to set everything up and it's correct and already. If you still have any problems, then of course, you can at any time here click on support and create a support ticket, and we will help you as soon as possible. Anyway, let's now come to a more special part of webhooks, and that is whenever you work with Stripe. Because the problem with Stripe is that not every webhook contains all data that we actually need, and that's why we need to store some data about the customer to be able to assign user levels correctly. What it basically means is that in the first webhook that comes in after a user purchases, there we have the email and we have the customer ID from Stripe. But then in future webhooks, it only sends the customer ID. So then usually we would not know which WordPress user it is, because we don't know the customer ID from Stripe. And that's why essentially what BricksMembers does when you set it to Stripe mode, it at first saves the mapping between user email and Stripe customer ID, so that whenever a webhook later comes in that only contains the customer ID, it knows which WordPress user it is. And what it also does, because it's not always guaranteed that the webhooks come in the right order, it also caches webhooks that come in from Stripe that don't contain a user email if a user with the customer ID is not being mapped yet in BricksMembers. And then when the webhook comes in that contains both the customer email and the customer ID, then it essentially afterwards uses this webhook to generate the user and set up the user level directly. So that's why actually Stripe is a lot more complicated, but practically in BricksMembers it's not, because the moment you go to the webhook configuration page here and you select Stripe under webhook configuration, then it actually switches in a kind of easy mode that saves you all the hassle with all those fields, and you only have to set up what's actually necessary. So you see now I switch to Stripe as a provider, and it automatically selected the authentication method Stripe. And you also find the webhook URL here, which you have to copy to Stripe after creating your webhook and selecting all the events. And then you also find the webhook secret here now, which you can actually type in yourself. You can unmask that and type in your own webhook, because this is also different about Stripe. Stripe provides the secret and you have to paste the secret in here, while on most other providers it's the opposite. On most other providers, BricksMembers provides the secret and you will have to copy and paste it to the other provider, but in Stripe handles that differently here. There you have to paste the webhook secret into BricksMembers. And then of course you would also enable logging. And yeah, that's all you have to do here. You click Save Settings and then you go to the webhook mapping page again. And what you see now is we're essentially having an easy mode here for Stripe, where you also see the last received webhook data again, but you see here everything is a lot easier because we already handle all the field mappings in the back end. Now let me just send one test webhook here from Stripe so that we deal with the correct webhook data. So that is how it would look like now after Stripe sent a webhook to your membership site here with BricksMembers. The difference here is now that you see those tags here where it says customer ID, email, customer name, price ID, product ID, event type, etc. because BricksMembers already knows the webhooks coming in from Stripe, and so we're helping you here a little bit by identifying the right fields, but actually you don't even need them all. This is more like if you switch to advanced mode, which you can do, but I don't recommend it. You usually don't need to, so stay in easy mode. The only fields that you actually need here is either the price ID or the product ID, because now here the only fields that you really have to fill out is the default user role, of course, like we described before, and the user level mapping, and you have to tell it what levels belong to subscriptions. And here the way you do it is simply by either using the price ID or by using the product ID. Generally, price ID is the best because price ID also automatically deals with variants, like price ID is always per variant of a product as well, while it can also be per product if you only have one variant. And that's why generally it makes most sense to use price ID here. So here, all you have to do, let's say you want a user with this price ID here, get the advanced access, you just copy that, paste it in here, and that's all. So now I click Save Settings. And now whenever a webhook from Stripe would come in with that price ID here, then it would assign this user level advanced access here automatically. So this is all you have to do when it comes to Stripe. You first go to the Webhooks configuration page. There you copy the webhook URL into Stripe. Then you copy the secret from Stripe in here. You click Save Settings. Then you go to the webhook mapping page. Of course, you have to send a test webhook from Stripe before so that you see the last received webhook data here. And then all you do is you look at the price IDs that you get here, copy them and paste them in here. You can also see the price IDs in Stripe, like it's all mentioned in the documentation where you find everything. Not like showing that here because it might change in the future whenever Stripe updates, and then this video would not be up to date anymore anyway. But yeah, you just put in all these price IDs here, and then the user levels get assigned based on the price ID. You can alternatively also use the product ID. It doesn't really matter. It works both, but yeah, price ID is usually what I recommend. And then if you sell any subscriptions, you just select the user levels that are part of the subscription, just as we already did before. And that's all. You just click Save Settings and it works. So yeah, this is how you set up Stripe. It's actually a lot easier because we have that easy mode here, because BricksMembers already know the webhooks from Stripe and it handles that correctly. There's one more thing I want to show you when it comes to the webhook stuff, and it is not actually webhooks, but that's currently, for example, if you use plugins as payment providers such as Fluent Card or WooCommerce or something like that, that's something that is on the same website as BricksMembers. Like if you use an online shop or whatever on the same website as the membership site is to sell your subscriptions. In that case, what you can also do here is you go to Action Triggers, and there under hook name, you can paste in any hook from Fluent Card, from WooCommerce or whatever, and then you select the action that should be taken whenever that hook is fired. So add level or remove level. Add level if you want to add a user level, or remove if you want to remove a user level. And then also you select the level here, for example, advanced access, and then you select how BricksMembers should identify which user it should apply the level to. So it could be current logged in user. Most of the time it's not the case. Or it could be user from hook arguments. So for example, now with this setting here, if let's say I would use whatever hook here, I don't know, like let's say Fluent Card, or it's wrong, order created, for example, of course, like the actual hook would be another name here from Fluent Card. I don't actually use it. It's just an example here. But let's say now this hook would get fired from Fluent Card. Then with the current settings, it would apply the advanced access user level to the user that is part of this hook argument. So if you save that now, Let's save it here. Then you see here it appears in that list. And now whenever someone would purchase or like trigger the purchase hook or order created hook or whatever in Fluent Cart, then the user level would get applied to that user. And of course, you could also select remove level here for another hook that should remove the user level. And in case you use a form or whatever where it's more about the current logged in user, you can also just apply the user level or remove it to or from the current logged in user. So this is actually a pretty powerful feature that we introduced with version 0.95, because that allows you to also directly use whatever checkout plugin you use on the same website or membership site as BricksMembers to assign user levels dynamically. And you also don't actually need to use the Webhooks functionality anymore for such plugins that are installed on the same website directly. So in that case, just use those action triggers here and it essentially does the same. The user levels get applied directly and you're good. And yeah, that's all you need to know to connect payment providers to BricksMembers. I think it's very powerful because you can literally use every payment provider that provides webhooks. Like BricksMembers does not lock you in to any payment provider, and you even have the option to use cart plugins or whatever you want that are installed on the same page by using those action triggers. Anyway, if you have any questions about all this payment provider integration or webhook stuff, feel free to leave me a comment below this video and I will answer as soon as possible. And of course, you can also at any time go to bricksmembers.com/contact and simply fill out the contact form there. And I will also reply to you within 24 hours. And yeah, so if you haven't done yet, also consider subscribing for upcoming tutorials about BricksMembers and also general membership tutorials for WordPress that will also come in the future. And if you haven't done yet, go to bricksmembers.com and purchase BricksMembers and start creating your own membership site.